We are now going to start the sixth part of our character creation tutorial, which is the UV unwrapping stage. During this part of the tutorial, we are going to be using the UV editing tab in our many tabs that we have here on the top. And what we are going to be doing is cutting out different pieces of the skin, which will then be laid out here on our UV editor. We are going to cut out different pieces and set boundaries for where we want our skin to be unwrapped. The main parts that we will be cutting out are the key boundaries between distinct limbs. So, for example, around the shoulders, wrists, around the waist and top of the legs, ankles, neck, and anywhere else that we need to create a line so that it kind of flays out the skin when we unwrap it. So I'm just going to start by selecting around the neck and control right click to mark this as a seam. And we will get this red line around here, so we can just test it out. If we select everything and we unwrap it now, it gets split up into two pieces by the neck and by the body. So we are just going to continue this process around our key features so that we can spread everything out onto our UV map when we unwrap it. We can hit A to select the whole body, UV, unwrap, and now our body is unwrapped at all of the edges that we've marked. Now we're going to test out an example material on our character just so we can check to see if our UVs are working okay. We're going to go into the shading tab. We're going to add a new material for our character and we're going to assign it a checker texture. Next, we're going to add a node. We're going to add a texture coordinate node, which we're going to use to reassign this texture to be on the UVs and not using just the default character's shape. And we're also going to add in a mapping node, which is going to do the remapping for us. We are going to plug in the UV coordinates into the vector space and then the vector into our checker textures vector. Now, when the texture is displayed, it's using the UV coordinates that we have set up when we unwrapped our character's model.
UV larger on the face, and is that distribution is working. Add on the mapping input to UV, and you can
Now, when we adjust the scale, we can test it out to see how our UV Unwrap is looking when we have a more scaled down and detailed texture for our character. For the eyes, we are going to start by separating these two so we can unwrap them separately. I'm just going to start unwrapping the accessories one by one by repeating the same process that we did and creating seams where we want to split our objects. Now that we've unwrapped all of our accessories, we have to select all of them as well as selecting our body and everything else that needs to fit onto our texture sheet so that we can position our accessory UV unwraps so that they're not overlapping with the body. I'm just going to unhide the body and the eyes, select everything, go into edit mode, and the last thing that we have to do before we can texture our character is deal with the hair. So for the hair, these are currently just single lines of vertices, and if we were to export this, it would not be correct because this is not really even a mesh. It's just essentially rendering as if it were a mesh, but it's not actually one. So to fix this, what we're going to do is take the piece of hair that we want. We're going to go to Object, Convert to Mesh. So once we do this, we go to Face Mode. There is a ton of geometry here, which is not ideal because we are trying to have a nice optimized character, and this one piece of hair has almost 8,000 faces, 8,000 tries. So that's not good. But we are going to use a really cool modifier that Blender has, which is the decimate modifier. So this is pretty similar to the quad remesher that we used before on the face, but because the hair is a pretty simple shape, we don't really need to use the quad remesher to get uniform edge flow and nice quad geometry. And this decimate modifier will do the trick for the detail that we need, which is not much for the hair. So we're just going to use unsubdivide and tick this up a few notches. If you go into object mode, you'll be able to see what the output will look like. And we want this to be pretty low poly. So I'm just going to decimate this 6 times and apply it. And if we go into edge mode, we are now down to 276 tries, or yeah, from the original 8,000. So that is a huge improvement. And when we go into object mode, it basically looks exactly the same. We really didn't lose much detail. So this is a huge improvement. And I'm just going to go ahead and go through all of the hair and repeat this process. So I just finished converting all of our pieces of hair into mesh objects, and to all of them I applied our base checker material. So now we have to create the seams for each piece of hair for proper UV unwrapping. I'm going to split these UVs similar to how I did the hair and just find the edge that cuts off the top facing part of the hair with the bottom facing part of the hair. So that would be this corner edge here that wraps around the whole thing. And that's where I'm going to create our seams. And I'm just going to do this for each piece of hair. Once we finish with all of our hair, we can just go ahead and unhide the body. Next, what I do is just select everything, go into edit mode, and then take all of our hair pieces and put them into place on our UV layout so they're not overlapping with anything else. Essentially, our UV unwrapping is done and we are ready to start texturing.